Good morning, freshmen. Welcome. We're so excited to have Mr. Golinkin here with us. Lev, he's really friendly, so I've just called him Lev. And so we're really, really pleased that he's here, and he has enjoyed. We have taken good care of him. We have taken him to 2 good restaurants and showed him what delicious food we have in Laredo. He has enjoyed it. So anyway, before we get started, I just want to remind all of you to please turn your cell phones off and try not to text and send little light messages to your friends during the talk. It's a little distracting. So you can do all your social media afterwards. And I do think that we do have a live feed as well as an opportunity to, we are capturing some of it and we'll be putting it on our own mobile site. So if you want to share that with your family or friends or anybody else, you'll have the opportunity to do it. I also wanted to let you know that tomorrow, and we have, we partner also with the City of Laredo for the One City, One Book. And tomorrow, Lev is going to be a meet and greet at the Laredo Public Library between 9:30 and 10:30. So if you want your book autographed or you want to take a picture with him, or there'll be some opportunity to do that. And then he's going to have a talk after that from 10:30 to 11:30 more or less, and it'll be a different kind of venue, so I'm sure some of his remarks will be perhaps similar to these, but perhaps a little different, and you might want to invite your family or your friends to go to that as well. So please go. I'm sure you'd be happy to host you there as well, okay? And after he talks, he's going to talk for about 20-25 minutes or so. He really wants to get into a question and answer session. So we will make mics available for you to come forward, and there'll be mentors that will be around to help you ask your question. So we want you, we're looking forward to your questions. Are always interesting to have. So I am going to present Dr. Arenas, our university president, to introduce Mr. Golinkin. Thank you.
I'm sitting here thinking, what do I say about a man that you know an awful lot about already? Because we've been able to travel with him through his life. And I was telling him that, I was telling Lev that many of the books that we read over the last 10 or 11 years have often been dark, and they've been very, very dark. But what I liked about this book was that it was very uplifting for me. It was just kind of him finding himself over time, and I really enjoyed that about him and about the book, and he is very affable, and we've had a wonderful discussion already this morning. But you've all had the opportunity to read about his life in the Ukraine, to read about his travels through Vienna to Bloomington, and if you've ever been in Bloomington, it's kind of an interesting landing in Bloomington. It's cornfields on either side of the airport, on either side of the runway, so it's an interesting, and then his years, a little bit about his years in New Jersey, in high school, and then a lot about his college career and life after college. And so, without further ado, Lev Golinkin.
Hello, thank you very much, Dr. Arenas. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I still remember when Texas A&M called me. Dr. Arenas said, we're thinking of having you on campus, and I said that's wonderful, but why? And he said, well, listen, in the past we have these accomplished people come on. And we thought this year we might dial things back a little bit. So we're kind of just looking for, for somebody who's like a bit of a slacker. And I was like, look no further, sir. This morning I overslept and watched cat videos. So I'm your man. But I am for real honored to be here. Most of all, I'm thrilled for you. You're just starting a wonderful journey at a wonderful school. You have so much to do. These things are so much more fun than commencements because, when you have graduation, it's kind of like, congratulations, you now have 3 hours to vacate the campus. Get out. In this case, you're just starting and you're settling in, and you should be settling in and getting oriented. And this is a good time for it. But the thing is, I don't want to talk for too long because so much of what I usually have to say is you guys already know about it. I don't want to tell you something you don't know. I don't want to say, work hard, things like that, because you know how to work hard, because you're here. You've been accepted to a terrific school, okay? You obviously know how to work hard. And I know some of you, mid-October is freshman year is when sometimes you start feeling like, do I really belong here? Maybe they made a mistake. Well, the people, the admissions officers, they're really good. So if you've somehow managed to fool them into accepting you, just continue fooling them until you get your degree, and then you can leave. So I don't want to tell you something, I don't need to tell you about immigration. I don't need to tell you about being, having your foot in two different worlds, of thinking in two different languages, of being part of one world, part of another world, maybe belonging in neither, or maybe belonging in both. You know this already. I don't have to tell you about discrimination or racism, because unfortunately, all too many of you know this already. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you two quick stories. One is from the book, and one is from my time in college. And then I think it would be easiest to just open up to discussion and to questions and answers, because that's what's really important, what you want to talk about. So this first story did not make it into the book for reasons that are going to become clear in 1 second. This is when I first started researching the people who helped my family, who helped hundreds of thousands of Soviet Jews. So, and when you're really in need, when you're living as a refugee, and when all of your needs are dependent upon the mercy of others, you remember when somebody helps you out. Like that person just, even though I was little, I was 9 years old, those people stand out in your memory. So you kind of have this warm glow around them. And one of the people I wanted to track down, I've never met him. His name was Bill. All I knew was his first and last name. And Bill, talk about having a crazy job, okay? Bill was our caseworker, which means that he was sitting in New York, he was moving around papers, and families were getting new lives across the Atlantic, okay? So he was controlling people, he was getting people through INS, he was getting people through customs. He was, this was a guy who was just changing lives as part of his job, okay? So I was very excited I was like, I can't wait to meet this special person. So all I knew was his first and last name. So I started making a list of everybody with that name in America. Going on social networks, going through all the different, just finding everybody. And normally, this is something that's called stalking, but when you're a writer, it's called research, okay? Words are important, okay? So I was researching Bill with all I got, okay? And a couple of weeks passed by, I didn't get anything, and I'm like, I bet you this guy's like leading a revolution or saving the whales or something, or doing something. And finally, I got him, okay? Like, he got back to me, and he's like, my name is, I was your caseworker. And I'm like, but finally, sweet Bill, I got you. And I'm so excited, and I turned on the recorder to call him and said, well, how did you get involved in this life-changing position that you did in being a caseworker for refugees? And Bill goes, I needed a job. And I said, okay, go on. And he said, well, I graduated college and I had bills and I needed to pay them, and this refugee group had a position, so I took it. Okay? I'm like, all right, well, I mean, like, tell me about some of the world-changing things you're doing now. And he's like, well, he's like, I'm an architect, and, I have a house, and I design different buildings. And at that point, I'm like, Bill, you're killing me. Like, I'm looking for Mother Teresa, and I got Bill, And, you can see why this story didn't make it into the book. It was like the first thing the editor tossed out. He was like, yeah, see you later, Bill. But here's the cool part, okay? As I started tracking down the various people who helped us, over and over, I kept looking for Mother Teresa's. I kept looking for saints, for angels, for people like Malala, the girl from Afghanistan and Pakistan. Kept looking for Malalas. And I kept finding just normal people, just everyday people who weren't angels, but nevertheless took part in something that was a miracle. And I find that to be the most wonderfully comforting thing. And I think especially looking at you guys, I think the pressure's too much today on freshmen. I mean, they're bigger than when I was in college, okay? You guys have more to deal with. And it's so tempting to just want to be in a part where you surround yourself, where you say, I'm going to put these ingredients, and I'm going to surround myself with these people, and then everything's going to be fine. And, if I just mix these things together, and then this is what's going to transform my life. But in reality, you don't know who's going to be transforming your life. You don't know who's going to be your angel. You don't know who are going to be the people that are going to profoundly change you. Okay? Like for us, we wanted Mother Teresa and we got Bill. But generally, but we needed Bill. More than anything, we needed to get out of the refugee camps. Bill needed a job. We needed to come to America. It worked out. And that also goes for you. I think it's too often, these days you're expected to be at 100%. You're expected to to everything to be perfect. Like perfect is like the starting point where you're at. And especially first semester freshman year, like you don't need to be at that perfect point. Like your job right now is to get acclimated, is to get on your feet. And if you look, if December rolls around and it's the end of the semester, and you're thinking, if you look back and you're saying, there were times I was maybe homesick, or I was maybe, just flustered because I was working a job and going to class. It was less than perfect. There's a word for that, and that's called normal, okay? If you look back and you say, oh, my entire semester, the whole time I was I was doing everything that I wanted to. I was going at 100%. I didn't even need to sleep. I was accomplishing great things 24 hours a day. Well, if you do that, most likely that means you spend your entire semester on crystal meth, okay? And that's 3.5 months straight on crystal meth, which is way, way too much, okay? So don't forget, as you get into midterms and finals, don't forget the definition of normal, okay? That's the first thing. Second, the second story I was going to tell you is about my time at college, okay? And in order to understand this, okay, you have to understand a little bit about how Boston College is shaped. It starts. Boston College is shaped on a hill. It's on a hill. The freshmen live all the way at the top because that's the furthest, so that's where they throw the freshmen. Everybody else is at the bottom, and in the middle, at the bottom of the hill, there are these things, they call them the mods, okay, which are crappy little apartments for seniors, okay? And they're like nothing special, but they have lawns and people can do cookouts and barbecues and tailgates. And if you go to Boston College now, you will see that the mods are surrounded by a fence, okay? It's about this big. It's just regular black metal fence, okay? When I've been thinking of talking to you guys, I've been thinking a lot about that fence, okay? And I'll tell you why, all right? That fence went up when I was a sophomore at Boston College, okay? And it was a big, big deal. Because when you're like a freshman or a sophomore, The mods, it's not just a bunch of crappy little houses. The mods is the promised land, okay? The mods is where you can go and where the beer flows like the mighty Rio Grande, where there's free food, where you can meet girls and guys, where you can party and tailgate, okay? And especially, you know, and the seniors, they didn't want anything to do with freshmen and sophomores. You know, they would, most of the time you wouldn't even get into the parties. They throw you out. But it was the idea. It was the idea, and you were coming down from your freshman on a Friday or Saturday night, and you see the glowing mods down there. And the thought that the BC administration, that the college group, would put up a fence and check IDs, to us it was like they announced that they were going to kill and eat the world's last panda. Okay? It was like, why would you do something so horrible to something so pure and beautiful? You know? And we flipped out. Okay? I mean, we overreacted. We started a whole Fight the Fence campaign. It was called Fight the Fence. Okay, posters went up on campus. People wore T-shirts. People started meeting in libraries to plan ways to fight the fence. Okay, it was this huge movement, and you know, and in the end, the fence won. I mean, it's still there, and every time I visit the campus, I kind of give it a little kick just to see it's still standing, still sturdy. But I've been thinking about that fence, and I've been thinking about you guys and gals, and here's why. You know, things, I'm sure you'll look at it in history classes, and just even looking at the news. History goes in cycles. Things go up, things go down, tensions go up, tensions go down. My generation, when I was a freshman, we hit the sweet spot, man. It was the late 90s. It was easy. We didn't have to worry about much. I mean, bad things were happening in the world, but it was far away. You know, we weren't confronted too much with racism. Things weren't tense in the country. We didn't have to worry about much, you know. During the 60s, they fought for civil rights. We fought the fence, okay? And that's not a bad thing. I mean, to us, that was a gift. You know, we hit a good point in the cycle. We were able to have that time to where we fought for a stupid fence for no real reason, okay? That was our gift, okay? That was the gift of comfort, the gift of peace. And you know, a lot of times older people will always tell you, you know, oh, you kids have it easy these days. You always hear that. I don't think you students have it that much easier. I think you have it harder than how I had it. Okay? I think you have a lot more to worry about. I think you don't have the gift of peace and comfort. Things are tense. You know, you're not going to be fighting the mod fence. You know, you're going to have bigger fences to fight. You're going to have bigger issues to deal with. But that doesn't mean, and this is the last thing I want to tell you, this doesn't mean that you also don't have your own gifts. We had the gift of comfort and peace. You have the gift of power. You don't have to worry about whether you can change the world around you. Because surely if any group of people can, it's you. You have the ability to send out a tweet, to make a comment on Instagram, and you can take one of your peers and you can cut them down. You can make somebody feel like garbage. You're not stupid. You know how to do it. With one little comment, with one nasty tweet, you could really destroy somebody's day with a push of a button. Or you could stand up. You could lift somebody else up. You could stand in and you can protect somebody. You can make one of your fellow classmen, classwomen, feel worthy, feel wanted and needed and appreciated. And again, with a push of a button. You don't have to worry about whether your voice matters, about whether your body matters in today's movements, because you have the opportunity to impact our society in America every day, whether it's a protest, whether it's speaking, or whether it's even listening to somebody else with a different point of view. Because Because these days, people don't listen to each other. Because they disagree, automatically says you're the enemy. And even listening, just with that simple act, you have a chance to make a difference. You don't have to worry about whether you have that power. For certainly, if any generation has it, it's you. And the only thing that I want to ask of you, and this is the last thing I'll tell you, is recognize that power, tap into that power, use that power, and please use it wisely. Thank you. Thank you. I guess, Dean Hickey, how do you want to do this? Do you have any questions? Or we can sit here in awkward silence. You're going to break the awkward silence? Okay, so they said, if you have a question, just raise your hand. Okay, you go first.
Okay.
Go.
Hello. Out of
Hi.
all of the people that you met through your experiences, who impacted you the most and why?
Who impacted me the most? I would say my college professor, Professor Kilcoyne, the one that told me to go get a pass, because he just, like, the way he told me to just go out and, get my things together, he said it in a way that believed in me. It's almost like he was giving me a term paper assignment, like, go and do this. And that the fact that he believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, that was huge. That really helped. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you don't have to clap. It's fine. Hi.
Hi. I wanted to ask how different you think your life would be if you went to Israel instead of America.
Wow. That's a great question. It's hard for me to tell because I've never been to Israel. But I know that the Soviet Jews who are there have not integrated very well. They're kept separate. They keep themselves separate. They have separate media. They'll read their own newspapers. And it's not like here where people switch between English and Spanish. It's most of, like, people I know who are there usually just stick to their own communities. I don't know how it would have been. I think I'm kind of more of an America guy. I just kind of I feel like I belong here more than there, It's a great question. I just can't answer because I don't know how. I'm just glad I'm here.
Hi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
That's really great advice for freshmen, but do you have any advice for someone in her, let's say, early 30s? Any sort of life advice, what to do?
Yeah. Here's what I would say.
Let's say early 30s.
No, fine. I'll tell you this, the things that I wind up, if you look back on things, most things that I regret aren't things that I've done. I regret the things that I haven't done that I wish I had. The things that keep you up really aren't, and this goes for the freshmen as well. No matter, you can screw up, but most of the time, unless you really, really hurt somebody else, most of the time you can undo your screw-ups. You can overcome them. It's when you don't do something and you never know what could have happened. Those are the, and I've been kind of writing things down, looking back. I'm like, what regrets, what have I not done in college or after college? Because the opportunities to participate or not participate are going to come up again. And it's kind of like this time, at least, I want to make sure I don't have the regrets. I want to keep piling up things that I didn't do in life because I was too scared. That'd be my advice. Okay, on that side, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
As someone who wants to become an author like myself, when writing this book, did you do it for the purpose of self-closure? And if not, what message did you want to portray to the audience when you were writing this book?
Okay, great question. No, I didn't do it for self-closure because otherwise I wouldn't have bothered having you guys read it. I would have just made a diary and left it in my, you're actually not a very good audience for the exact message I had because what I wanted to do is two things. One is the book's essentially a 300-page thank you, 90,000-word thank you note to the people who helped my family and hundreds of thousands of others. But what I really wanted to do is I wanted to put an American, just an everyday American, into the shoes of somebody who's an immigrant, somebody who might not speak English as their native language, somebody who has a language, and in that sense, you guys are like not very good because you already know everything I'm talking about, I'm preaching to the choir here, But yeah, I wanted to help generate empathy for refugees and for immigrants because I think Americans are capable of a lot of empathy. It's just a lot of times if they're not exposed to something. And to me, the biggest gift for me for the book was the first time somebody told me, I'm never going to speak loud and angry to somebody with an accent. That made me feel wonderful. So it's to generate empathy among Americans towards refugees and immigrants. Hey, bud. How are you?
Hey. So I know this one's not like a super deep question, but it was one of my favorite chapters in the book.
I'm not a super deep guy, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. It was my favorite chapter. It was a long time ago, so I don't know how you're gonna answer this one, but Alicia, what happened?
Oh, it didn't work out.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. But you know what? She's somebody who impacted me, and that's the other thing you asked for advice for. You have to start appreciating somebody who impacted you, even if it didn't work out, because it still helped change you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it didn't work out, but you know what? At least she helped set me on that path to becoming a better person, and. You still feel sad about it, but you kind of learn to appreciate it after a while, or try to.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, someone.
Go ahead,
Hi. It's been a good 2 decades since you left Russia, right? So I was wondering if you still know how to speak Russian, and if you do you still speak it often?
Can I say, могу ли я что-то сказать? Да, конечно, могу. I speak Russian. Can I say, that's oh, please, don't. You know how to say, please, how many of you know how to speak Spanish? There you go. Good for you. And that's, yeah. The only problem is, though, man, now when I speak Russian, because I've been here so long, I do with an American accent. So once I was talking to a babushka, an old woman in Russian, and she thought I was an American who just worked really hard and studied Russian. And then I was like, no, it's actually my native language. And she was just so disappointed. So now I speak English with a Russian accent, Russian with an English, and I speak Ukrainian like a 10-year-old remedial student, so. Hi.
Hi. So in the book, you had mentioned how you had this acquaintance or friend in college that also immigrated from Soviet Union, but
Yes.
you guys had never talked about it. I was wondering if through the process of researching or stalking everything, if you had ever gone back and talked to the whole process with
You know
him?
what? That's a great question, and I've been meaning to get in touch with him. Dan, this is the guy who was also from the Soviet Union. We never mentioned it. That's a great question. I've been meaning to get in touch with him. I have not, but I know that a lot of people who came here during my age responded well to the book, and those are the people. Those are the people I was really terrified of, because it's like, you know, if somebody writes a book about, you know, first generation Mexican American, you guys are going to scrutinize it a lot, you know, because you want to make sure that somebody's not representing it wrong way, you know. And I didn't talk to Dan. I know it's a great question, but you know, and some other people, most of them liked it, and I was very careful to make sure it didn't represent us in a incorrect way. Hey, go ahead. That's oh, there you go. Hi.
Hi. I wanted to ask you, like, how did you feel when your parents were disappointed in you because of your choice and change of career? Because, you know, they wanted you to be a doctor, right?
Yes, yes, they did.
So you became a writer instead.
Yeah, I did. It was very hard because I felt like they brought me to America. You know, I felt like I owed them a lot. But and then somebody else, the other writer over there, she asked, you know, how did the book help? You know, did the book help you personally? And it wound up. I didn't do this for my parents, but the book wound up helping them understand me in reading it. And even, I think even more importantly, it wound up helping me understand them. You know, because writing this book, I started to understand what it's like to be a refugee, not as a child, but as a parent. You know, I don't have kids, but at least I'm looking at it as an adult, and I can imagine how terrified and how brave they must have been. So it took them a while, but I think the book helped them understand me and vice versa. And now they're really happy. My dad keeps collecting all the clippings from newspapers and all of that stuff. So, but it was a very hard thing to admit. But once I did it, it became a lot easier. Huh? Yeah. So. And there's a question up here too, guy. Go ahead. Yep.
Me?
Sure. Disembodied voice. Okay, you, somebody. Okay, go.
Too slow.
Pointing, what?
It's because you were too slow.
Dude, I'm so confused right now.
Can I go?
Oh, yeah, okay, fine, go, yes. Yes, there we go.
Okay, sir. Lev.
Yes.
I have a question for you. Now that you chased after your past and like recalled everything, wrote it down and showed it to the world and gave your thank yous, what's your next great adventure and what do you plan on doing in the future? And if you think about it, do you plan on sharing it with us?
Wait, okay. What's my next adventure? Okay, and then what was the last question?
It's just, what are you going to do now?
Oh, I don't know, man. Watch cat videos? No, I'll tell you this. After the refugee crisis happened and the immigration issues, all of a sudden this book became a lot more real because I can use this, as I said, as a tool to help advocate for immigrants and refugees. So I've been writing a lot of short-term, short pieces, like 800 words, 1 or 2 pages for newspapers, and I've really enjoyed that. My editor keeps pushing for me to write another book. It's kind of like he's hinting, he's like hinting he wants to have another child, and I'm like, I'm not ready yet. So I've really enjoyed writing just short pieces about the current crisis and, just pushing for immigration and refugees.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, bud.
Hi, I've been wondering what has been your experience since you got here in Laredo?
What's been my experience? It's been wonderful. Dean Hakey told me the one thing I was terrified of was the heat, because I don't do she told me, oh, it's going to be nice here. It's going to be 91 degrees. And you know what I mean? It's like, it's going to be nice. We're going to set the oven to 3,000. That's I was terrified of that. I love the food, obviously, but it's I love seeing the potential. Like, in the downtown, just so many things, and you can look at it. They call it revitalization, is when you take an old downtown, you build it up, and you see, like, I've been doing it in New Jersey, and I see it, and I'm looking like, man, this place could be hopping so much, and there's so much potential here. That's been my impression. Okay.
Hello, Mr. Golinkin.
Hi.
I was wondering, at the end of the book, there's a prayer.
Yes.
Does the prayer tie into an earlier part of the book, or how America is like a place where you can grow seeds?
Yeah, absolutely. It's where you can get a new life, where you can get a new opportunity, and that's so. A lot of countries aren't like that. Like, if you're somebody who's who's Scottish, and if you move to France, you can be for generations, your children will never be French. Your children will never have okay? They can do okay, but they will never be accepted. And here in America, that's what makes it awesome, is you can come in and you can be an American, and you can have another chance. So yeah, absolutely. But it also deals with seeds that people just can impact each other, how you can have a little remark, you can have a conversation with somebody, and that is going to wind up having effects and impact that person down the road. So I meant it in the bigger way of America, and in the smaller way of how all of us can influence each other. Hi.
Hello, how are you doing today?
Hi, good.
With books usually of this subject matter, they're a lot darker. So do you think, with the majority of the book from your young age, that made it more comical and uplifting?
So you're saying, why isn't it so gloomy?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, you know what? I wanted to walk a line. I really don't like that I've been to the mountaintop and everything has been, I was a drug addict and now everything is perfect, because I'm not a perfect guy at all. But I also didn't want it to be all doom and gloom. And, in the end, this is a story about how people from all over the world wound up helping 300,000 Soviet Jews who they didn't even know. And that's an awesome thing. Complete strangers wound up helping us. There's plenty of dark and horrible things in the world, but, I think that's very special. They didn't have to help us, and they did. And in general, I'm just a sarcastic guy, and kind of when something bad happens, my immediate instinct is to make a joke about it. So I think that showed up, too.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Yes.
Hello. What things or people truly helped you feel like you belong to, like a part of America?
What helped me feel working as a volunteer in Boston College really helped me. When you're part of to me, the best part of not being lonely is when you're part of a group that's working on a good project. That was one of the, you just feel accepted, you get to belong. To me, it was that. And then it made me feel, it took me a while to feel in America. Understanding baseball, that took a long, long time. Because if you grow up without it, you don't get it. It's the most maddening game. So that helped me. But more than anything, it was being part of volunteer groups at Boston College.
Hello, over here.
Yeah, yes,
I'm right
thank you,
here.
wait.
What was the hardest part to write, like for you?
What was the hardest part to write?
Yeah.
The Alicia part was hard to write, but the hardest part, the absolute hardest part, was writing about my mom and the language barrier. That was the part I left for the last, because my mom was a doctor, and she was reduced to being, just seeing people just treat her like she was a dog. Like, that was the hardest part. It was the last thing I wrote in the book. That was but people actually wound up really responding to it. But yeah, that was the hardest.
Hello.
Yes? Wait, yes, thank you.
Hi, Lev.
Hi.
I was actually wanted to ask the question. I've been curious about it for the book. Your sister, so what happened to her? Did she become successful? Did she drop out of college or something?
Yeah, my sister, I'll tell you, Lena, it's a good question. A lot of people ask about her. She has 2 kids. She's living in the Midwest. She married an American. she has a PhD and she's a manager at a company. I'm not sure what she does because it involves like math, which means it doesn't involve me. But here's the thing with her. She asked me to change her name because in a lot of ways she's where I was. For her, life began in America. She doesn't want to think about the past. And for her kids, this book actually wound up helping her kids because they didn't know. Her children are 17 and 15, and they didn't know anything about her past. So reading the book actually really helped them. And I'll tell you one really quick thing. I didn't tell her about the book until the very end because I didn't want her to freak out because I knew she would. And even then, I was too much of a coward, so my mom told her about it. And then she went up and she said, she called me and she's like, I want you to change my name. And I said, of course, yes. And then she calls me back. Okay, and she goes, I want my name to be Abigail. Okay? And I was like, no. I mean, it's like Samuel, Svetlana, Faina, Lev, and Abigail. One of these has been changed, right? And for it was the weirdest 5-minute convo I've ever had, man, because she kept saying, like, why the name Abigail was really good, and I kept telling her, like, listen, we got me and the editor on this team, and we're not looking for any more. I ain't gonna change this, man. You're not gonna be Abigail, ever. But for some reason she wanted to be. Yeah, she's doing good, but she doesn't wanna, she doesn't wanna talk too much about her past. And as somebody who's been there for so long, I respect it. I can see once in a while she's tempted, she'll ask me about it, but then she backs off, so. But other than that, she's doing great, so thank you for asking.
Okay, thank you.
Stand up. All right, yes, microphone on? Not?
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask if you could go back in time and talk to yourself, like your younger self, what would you say?
Well, it's a funny, okay. I was actually talking about this with Dr. Inez before this. Have you heard about a lot of times of memoirs being fake? Of like somebody writing a memoir and then it comes out that it was faked? It's like it's tempting, man, because I mean, think about it. Like everybody's got regrets, man. Like, when you're looking, you're writing back on your life and you're like, man, I wish I did this or that. It's tempting. I would just give the same advice I gave to this young lady. The things you're going to regret are the things you didn't do. Whether it's with relationships, with pushing, with people in your life, or with just things you're too afraid to do. You don't regret the things you do. You regret what you're too afraid not to. That's the biggest advice. Yes.
Hi, yeah. I wanted to ask, how there's problems in the United States with immigration?
Yes.
I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Well, I'll tell you this, with immigration, I think, again,
When you ask your question, can you stand up?
I think the biggest thing that we can do as immigrants is to get native-born American allies, okay? And I think Americans, more than other people, are empathetic towards immigrants, okay? And I think it's just a question of getting allies. Right now, what I think is, and I'm working on an article now on this, I'm trying to convince somebody to let me write it, but it's, I think it's dangerous to have somebody like Donald Trump be in charge of immigration. I think the U.S. Congress needs to take it over. I don't, these are not the type of people who should be controlling this. And I think the vast majority of Americans agree. Yeah, I'll clap for that too. Hi.
Hi, Lev.
Hi.
After coming to the United States and adapting to the American culture, what political party did your parents and family overall lean to, the Republican Party or the Democratic Party?
You know what? Until this year, it was mostly Republican. And a lot of ex-Soviet Jews wound up going Republican. And one of the big reasons, I'll tell you this, is because Ronald Reagan, who was a Republican president, is the one who wound up letting in Soviet Jews. So for a lot of them, it wound up just being, you come to this country, and this is the person who helped who helped bring you in. So a lot of ex-Soviet Jews wound up becoming Republicans. With this election, it obviously became a lot different. So, but yeah, originally, I feel comfortable saying that the vast majority of ex-Soviet Jews became Republican, and a big part of it had to do with the fact that we just felt so good about Ronald Reagan because he's the one who let us in.
Thank you.
All good? Done? All right, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a terrific honor and a privilege. Thank you. Thank you.